Okay, so my first question is about the problem of preciseness. Like
Yeah.
when these days there are a lot of seminars and talks are going on,
Hmm.
so there are good speakers who talk, but they don't talk precisely.
Hmm.
Like if there's a question asked, they will talk about something related to it,
Hmm.
or they won't stop themselves.
Hmm.
They'll answer the question and they'll further continue with something related, then something else, which creates a lot of confusion and information overload.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to ask you about especially in subjects like philosophy and humanities subjects, we are rarely taught about preciseness.
Hmm.
Why is this so? Because in people who talk about scientific subjects, mathematical subjects, they are very precise. They'll talk in two, three lines, good, and everything is conveyed. But when we take philosophical lectures, even in my whole education also, most people keep on going, and they have this urge to talk about like everything. Why is this so in humanities subjects?
Yesterday, I think I told you, philosophy gives answers to most of the questions where there are no answers. So, if I am not sure, if somebody asks me what is 1 plus 1, I am able to tell you that is 2. Wherever, whenever, whoever ask, the answer is same. What is philosophy? Philosophy is,
That has a lot of definitions.
yeah,
In
tell me what
Western,
is
it is love.
philosophy?
It is love. In Western, they say it's love for wisdom. In India, we say it's darshan. It's reflection, and there are a number of interpretations, but there is nothing one concise thing.
Yeah, so all remain same, because if you have wisdom, wisdom is with knowledge. Therefore, when you get knowledge, your reflection will vary. So, if I have more knowledge, the way I reflect is entirely. Yesterday we discussed, right? Your world is created by the knowledge which you have. So, when you ask a very what is the purpose of education? When you ask, it is not like 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Purpose of education for somebody who don't have a job is job. For job, he wants some certificate. So he will say, I want a certificate, and with that certificate I must get a job. Somebody who already have a job, what for education? It will be entirely different. For some people, it may be to know the world. A small child is not worried about why do you learn language. Probably to know the culture of that land, to travel to that place. For some people, they may not even travel at all, but still they are interested in learning language, because he knows one language, you want to compare with something else. It could be just passion. So, philosophy always, that's why yesterday itself I said philosophy doesn't have an answer. But nobody have answer also, still we can give answers. Because there is nothing called precision in philosophy. There is nothing called this is the answer. I can only say this is a answer or an answer. That's it. Each perspective it could be different. Each person it could be different. At different ages could be different. And whenever we talk about any descriptive pattern, deductive, inductive, there are different styles. In all of these styles, the teacher or the philosopher will give you answers, because I don't know in which frequency you are moving. If there are 10 candidates, I will try 10 different styles. That is why it looks like you are over expanding, you are doing blah blah blah, or you yourself is not convinced that this is the way I have to tell you. Therefore, what do? I keep talking so many things around it, so that probably you will make the shape.
But sir, that argument itself has a structure. The way you are talking, that you will go for 10 different students,
Yeah.
and then you will have. But the thing is, you are also have for this diverse process you have a structure.
Yeah.
But like if yesterday I asked you what is meant by kalpana, you told me imagination and then you expanded it.
Yeah. But some
Other
people,
just-
yeah, that some people, what happens is they don't go to the best method to approach anything. See, when you asked me, I immediately asked you, what is philosophy? How do you define it? Understood? Some people, what do? They don't look at the word meaning, they don't look at the context, they just do blah blah blah. And I will tell you some great speakers in philosophy in India, the present world. I am not talking about the heritage traditional people. At least I must have listened to them 10 times in different lectures. Either it could be yoga, it could be national education policy, it could be Indian culture, it could be politics, and it could be religion, it could be something else. Everywhere you will see nearly 80% content is same. You understood? Because they know only little jargon and they keep pushing the same thing everywhere.
Exactly. Yes. But so that becomes very problematic when you're trying to learn a discipline.
No,
When
you
I see,
what you should do is don't listen to such mediocre talk. Now we keep saying, engineering students also we keep saying, there is a basic book for mathematics for engineering that is written by Erwin Krasik. If I teach or I will ask some student, I will say only read that, nothing else. Otherwise, we have a Agarwal, Kapoor, Sinha, Jinnah, so many people are there. All of them are rubbish. So when you read that, you don't understand the reality, you don't understand. So best thing to learn philosophy is you should have a dictionary of philosophy. That's how I learned. Look at the meaning very carefully. And then start expanding in that. Look at what are the classical works. Because philosophy and all, there is no new interpretation. You don't have to get a new interpretation. Right? When you say religion to politics relationship, it's all traditional, 500-year-old tradition. We don't have to redefine, relook at it. That's not at all required because it doesn't change. The culture is like not like weather which manifests every day. It is like climate. It is almost like it changes only, in a century, not even centuries. So I think philosophy is such a subject where you have to create your. That is why philosophy PhDs are done easily, because your interpretations are much simple. Mathematics, it's not that simple to do a PhD. Physics is not that simple to do PhD because you have to prove in front of somebody else. Darshanam is something which, reflection is something which depends on manas. The mind, manam darpana samanam. The mind is what reflects. And everybody's mind is different. Now the way I am explaining to you, Yamini will realize it in an entirely different style because you are a student of philosophy. Whereas Jayanti will understand, Dr. Jayanti will understand in an entirely different style because she is a professor of philosophy. A statistics person, Asha, will understand in entirely different. Falgun being a student, of graduation, he will understand entirely different. His basic principle behind what he is thinking is entirely different. Chandrasekhar will have an entirely different style of thinking. Same concept. That's why I'm saying it's all perception. The perception is, there is a saying, the perceiver perceives the way the perceiver want to perceive and not the way the speaker want the perceiver to perceive. So it's a perception. Philosophy is a big perception. Yeah.
I had a very different experience. Recently, I got into some workshops where they were told, they were training us to practice philosophy basically. So when the session would start, they would first ask, they would keep a question. Like if a simple question is that how are you feeling? And I answer that like yesterday I ate something. And no. The question is this. So the thing is the session won't start until the participants have understood that they are doing something. They are doing something. They are here for a purpose, and there is some preciseness. So that gave some importance of silence. That if you don't know something, then you don't have to bring a lot of words and just talk about it. That gave a good grasping power, and also that most of the subjects that I've learned were from people who were talking precisely about something, even philosophies. Like if this subject is this and this is that, so that they are defining simply with simple statements, with not a lot of interpretation. Interpretations come later on when you have the learners have developed some perception. But my problem was exactly this only, that this information overload, when you don't understand what the speaker is exactly trying to say. Like whatever you are saying, your words, all the concepts you're talking to me, I can concretize it. I can have some kalpana about it, that what you are saying has also some meaning in my life also. That is how we communicate. But if that part lacks, if I cannot concretize what concepts you're talking about, then we are, I don't know, that would be a very futile exercise.
See, when just we started, Asha Ravi asked me a question. How are you? I said, don't ask me this question because it's a casual, assume that I'm sick. Assume you go and ask somebody who was bedridden with a fever. When you go and ask them, how are you? Definitely you will have to tell that I am feeling better. My temperature is better now. You have a leg pain, you should tell that the pain is reduced. So that how are you has got a different meaning in that place. Assume that somebody has got a interview to attend. Just before that you are asking, how are you feeling now? Do you have tension or not? That can be the question. Before a competition, about the feeling of how are you feeling, that is having an entirely different meaning. I am not sick, I am not for a competition, I am a cool man. This is a Western style of asking. Everybody will ask, how was your day, how was your weekend, as if weekend they have a great thing to do, right? They have dating, they have picnic, they have so many different parties, but we are not in such a structure. So for us, we don't say how are you at all. We only say namaste, namaskaram. That's our greeting. This how are you is a very bad greeting as far as I am concerned. If somebody says namaste, it's acceptable to me. That means I am greeting you, pranams to you, or maybe namaste to you, or namaskaram to you. Or good morning is also fine. Assume that you want to become an English person. So just now only I said don't ask me that question anymore. That's a greeting for many people. One. For some people, doing a good makeup, they feel, yeah, I am good, I am great. So that is showing that you are good. So feeling is a lower version or higher version than showing. Feeling and showing. Showing is the lowest. Next becomes feeling. But we believe in Bharatiya Shastram, in Indian tradition, we believe be that. When you are really sick or you are not beautiful, you are doing a facelift by yourself to show somebody else, it's called showing. When you are internally damaged, you are not well, then somehow you are appearing for something. That means you are a real runner. When you run, nobody will ask you, how are you feeling now? Do you have tension? Because you always is good in that, right? So when somebody has tension only, you will ask. Assume that you are going to give a lecture. How are you feeling now? Should ask to somebody who is not used to giving lectures, right? Do you ask some politician, how are you feeling, or do you have tension for going in front of the audience? You cannot ask them. So for each individual, that how are you question is a very separate, for separate people. You should know to whom to ask, at what time you should ask. Whereas if you are being inside that, then all these feeling, looking good, feeling good and all goes. You are good, that's it. So how are you feeling is a question which is to be asked to somebody who is not really feeling good, or probably you should have a linkage to the situation in which they are there. That is most important. That's what I feel. Maybe Dr. Jayanti will have something to add. She's a professor actually.
Good evening, sir.
Namaste. Yeah.
You are absolutely right. So I don't have to add anything. So, sir, you are right, absolutely. And this is what Indian tradition is, that we use namaskar and pranam most. And as you said that how you are feeling, so this kind of questions we should not ask. And I agree with you, and I learn from you. So. So I don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
In the West, like how are you is used in order to strike a conversation here.
Yeah, that's a greeting, because most of the people are not well most of the time probably. So you should. It's like asking permission. Are you in a good mood to talk to me?
Yeah, it's basically like that. So
Yeah.
here people don't just say fine if they are not fine.
Yeah,
So
they will say, no, I am not good. Now let me not talk to you.
Not exactly. They would say, today it's a busy schedule and all that. So then the other person would know that you should not disturb him. At least not today. So it's not the right time. So that's how at least we interpret here. So at least like in our office, like so when I ping somebody and I ask today, then they'll say like,
So there it is actually a practical question, but here it is not a practical question. It is like don't use that as a greeting because you are copied from there.
Yeah.
Here,
probably not in Indian context, but at least in Western context, it is mainly used in order to gauge how busy the person is. So that's how we use it here. Yeah.
So here in India, what I observed is like speaking in English, asking that how are you and all that. Speaking in English, it has become a status more than just a way of communication. So why is that?
That is because we see. That is why I'm saying, because we just copy without knowing the context. That is what I told. No, the other day also I was mentioning. We have a London professor. When somebody met an English professor, met him, he asked, "What is your good name?" He said, "Don't ask this in London. At least I understand that I am a Keralite. You are also equally a Keralite. This is not a good way to ask somebody." Got it? I remember when Anusha was, I had a small boy who was in 8th grade or so. I asked to ask Anusha, "How are you?" And Anusha said, "I am good." Then the boy said, "Yeah, that lady don't know how to answer. When somebody asks, 'How are you?' you should say, 'I am fine.' Because the teachers taught them like that. You should say, 'I am fine.' Whether fine is the best word or good is the best word. America, everybody says, 'I am good.' No? They don't say, 'I am fine.'
Again, fine is good with respect to health. So
Yeah.
basically, my health is fine, is what they say.
But mood is good.
Yeah, it also takes into account their mood and their schedule and everything.
Yeah. I am good to go. That means, yeah, we could have dialogue. Yes, you proceed. That's okay. It's like asking permission. Here also we will ask, may I ask you one question? Then I keep saying, yeah, your one question is over. You already asked one question. Why do you waste the time asking like that? You come straight to that. Because we are here for satsang, asking question only. But then after that, why do you ask, let me ask one question to you? That's actually waste of time. These are all formalities which are sophisticating your life by adding artificiality, not being simple. That is how you have been tamed or told. That is not required actually. That is why philosophically they keep lot of blah 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 blah, but content will look really bad sometimes. But precision is there if you read Radhakrishnan's philosophy of education. He will exactly list down. You can list down maybe 100 points from one article. Maybe from one lecture you can get some 10 to 15 points. But same, if you look at some professors, one point of Radhakrishnan will become 1 hour lecture for them. Without even that point, you will not be able to locate. Correct, Yamini? So read from the source. You don't have to read. That is why the other day there was an education lecture. I only went to Radhakrishnan because he is the man who defined the philosophy of education in India. Kothari Commission, all that was after that. They all referred him only. So if you look at it, they all diluted it and made it bad. You must go to the root. That is what is to be done.
Okay, the other question is about information overload.
Yeah.
That in current times we have a lot of information overload through social media and through other resources, also academically, but also like I was talking about preciseness. But when we think, there also we have a lot of information overload. There are a lot of thoughts that we don't believe in, a lot of thoughts we don't want to also entertain, but we have a lot of a huge load of thoughts. So in that way also we have information overload, and we are consuming a lot of information from our surroundings also, which has very less credibility. So in 3 aspects, if you can talk about it academically, the social environment, and cognitively, mentally, how can we consume consciously?
Yeah. Here again, what I want to tell you is, when you open a TV program, or maybe when you read some article, when you read a newspaper, you have a lot of information on national education policy today. Why do you want to go to information on national education policy? Go to national education policy. That is the data. Data becomes information by interpretation, analysis, criticizing, judging, comparing by someone who is using his logic, and they start writing something on that. You are looking at information is because you don't have analysis power, you don't have. See, that is why I don't listen to anybody's national education policy lectures. I have national education policy available with me. I downloaded that. I will read that. I will interpret. I will judge. Instead of that, what people will do? They will read a newspaper in which one paragraph would have been written about national education policy. That's a huge data. People don't want to read that. They want to read somebody's interpretation. And then you will read somebody's interpretation, somebody's judgment, somebody's comparison, somebody's criticism. Don't look for information. You have to create information. from your analysis. So how do you become knowledgeable? Not by gathering information. That is where you are doing a mistake. No PhD is done based on informations. PhD is based on data collection. You have to collect data. With your analysis, you create information out of it. You must write data. See, before talking to you, I wrote it here. Are you seeing? I wrote data and then I put an arrow mark and then wrote information and then put an arrow mark, then knowledge. You asked only information, but I don't stop there. So have data, analyze it, interpret it, judge it, criticize it, compare it, all that what you want, you do it. That is your ability. Then that becomes information to you. That information you can compare with somebody's information. If you don't compare with your information with somebody, you may end up in mistakes. So first get the data, interpret yourself and then compare with somebody's interpretation. That is required. Then what you should do, you relate that, maybe you purify it, you create that a refined knowledge. Information becomes a knowledge to you. You consume it as yours. You have lot of data which are conflicting, contradicting, and you are not able to understand where I have to put my hand. That is because you have not seen the data. You are not convinced about somebody's decision on that. Assume you want to study some subject. I want to do PhD in philosophy is what I want. But you are asking 10 of your relatives, maybe another 15 of your professors, maybe few colleagues. 40 people would have given information to you. You are confused because each person will have their own views. They will say philosophy, PhD is useless, don't go for that. Somebody else will tell that is good, but you get only knowledge. You can be a wise person, but that doesn't give you roti. You understood? So many versions could be there. Why you are confused? Because you don't know what you want to do. Even if there is 1,000 people, if I know who is my brother, it is easy for me to pick up. But there are 1,000 people, I don't know who is my brother. What should I do? That is the confusion. I have no confusion in looking at any data anywhere because I know data first. I know how people have interpreted it. Got it? And that becomes yours. You become a knowledgeable person. That you consume it. You create it. You know where it is going to be applied. How can I use it? Whether it is going to help somebody. So the information you transfer to Viveka, Vivechana, Buddhi. Discriminative. I know, oh, this statistics is correct. Therefore, here I can use it. This place is bad. Therefore, I should not go there. This place is best. I should go there. So all these are my conclusions or usage of information for my practical ability. So I am using it for my life. I am applying it with my vivekam, discriminative power, and my rational, that is vivekam. I am using a rational. There are three informations. I will say, oh, this is not correct because rationally it is not correct. If it is like this, this will be the result which cannot be accepted. There is contradiction. So all that analysis after that information will give you knowledge. Then that knowledge you apply in 10 different situations. What you gain is experience. Got it? So first get into the data. Don't go into this and that information. Look at what is his reference. Where did he read that? If there is no reference, it will not be. And people have to write it down so that reference have to be given. When I am talking, I am giving references. When I told you about education, I will tell you this is from Radhakrishnan. This is from his talk in this place. Ask. Then if they refer to some newspaper headline, they don't even read the whole article sometimes. They will only look at the headline. They will only look at the bold letter, pick it up and then put it to PowerPoint and then start speaking on that. Correct. And it may be one party in the left, the other item he would have picked up from the other paper which may have a different concept on that. Then you are finished. The listener will get confused. Consistency will not be there. So information is actually you have to create from the basic data. That is what I want to tell you.
So, sir, in like if there is an exception, like if I am trying to read Saundarya Lahari and I do not know Sanskrit, and it would take me some time to learn the language, then I have to rely on some other interpretation. Even though I go for Oxford interpretation or some very good interpretation, this always has some bias in it. So what can we do about that? Because we do not know our own language.
It is not very difficult to understand Sanskrit with the literature. Best thing should be to read from a translation to Hindi. If you are good in any mother tongue which is in India, see, I read Bhagavad Gita with the Malayalam translation. That is much better than an English version. What happens in English version? Say, take one simple word, love. L-O-V-E, love. If a mother have love to the kids, in Sanskrit, that is entirely different from the love between a teenage. Love to a student is entirely different. But in English, there is only one word. You have only two words, probably, more closely. Synonyms equivalent maybe like and love. I love flower. I love somebody. I love the color. No, it can, you look at your mother tongue, it will have different words. 100% will have different words. Correct? Sneham is different from premam. Premam is love between people. Sneham is love between people who are related from higher to lower. Maybe father to mother, sisters. So when you translate most of the literature, that's what the other day also I was mentioning. In Bhagavad Gita, when we say bandhanam is different. Attachment is used in many places. Attachment is not bandhanam. Bondage, translation is bondage. Bondage is entirely different from attachment. I have attachment to Yamini. That is why Yamini is asking question, I am giving answer. Yamini has attachment to me. That is why you are coming to me and asking question. Arjuna had attachment to Krishna. Krishna had attachment to Arjuna. That is why they have invested time each other. But then what he said is, don't get binded on me. I can suggest this is how data transferring information to knowledge to experience. At the end, what I will tell, Yamini, you decide whether it is correct or not. The bondage is what? No, I am telling you. Now don't listen to anybody else. Understood? Sometimes parents are not attached to you. They wanted you to bind it onto them. They want bondage. They will say no. Don't go. Don't listen to anybody else. I am telling you. If I am telling you means what? Are you the policeman or what? In that, are you the judge? But even if a judge says you can go to higher court, right? So, words meanings, if you look at it, bondage is different, attachment is different. If you look at bondage and attachment, the two words, and then search in Bhagavad Gita, even the translators will show you different texts in which Sanskrit word can be same sometime if they are good translators. But if they are not good translators, you will see they use it in different places by mistake. So what is to be done? Maximum or the best suggested is to look at your own mother tongue. See, when I gave whole Bhagavad Gita lecture in English also, what I used was the Malayalam version. Is it difficult to get an English version in front of me and read that? Sloka by sloka I can chant somebody and then start giving. Correct? It is nice because words will be there. But that actually there are a lot of mistakes. Even while reading it, you create your mind polluted. So best is to read into, though you don't know Sanskrit, nothing wrong. To learn the literature, you don't require to know the language. You need not to become an expert in that. You must know how to interpret them. I keep saying in English, you are a English native speaker or your mother tongue, a poet's poetry you will not be able to interpret. That ability is in the literature part of it. Somebody knows how to speak that language, read that language, doesn't mean they can read the poetry in their language and then start interpreting it. Right? So as a philosophy student, your idea is to understand the scriptures and literature. Don't have to learn the language. Even if you learn language, you will not get that ability. Instead of that, if you have ability in one language, use that translation, especially any Indian language will do. Translations in Indian languages have a lot of similarity because we understand the same culture, same structure, all that. Then look at the meaning many times, then you can interpret, you can translate that into English. I wish sometime probably I can translate Bhagavad Gita in a better style.
That would be really helpful for a lot of people.
But that I have done 18 chapters, sloka by sloka. I already gave lecture. That itself is using either the Sanskrit or the text which is translated, interpreted in Malayalam by Shankaracharya or Chinmayananda and Nitya Chaitanya. Some 2-3 books I used. All of them are in Malayalam. That is what I used.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. And another question is from what yesterday you were talking about. So, and I also read a biography of an author who used to meditate also and also write poetry and very good literature stories. So I wanted to ask you that his imagination also is a face of ध्यान. क्या कल्पना भी ध्यान का एक चेहरा हो सकता है?
Who is that author?
Amrita Peter.
Okay. See, dhyanam is concentration. I told yesterday I have to go to NDA, National Defence Academy. This can be a dhyanam of a 10th class student. So plus 1, plus 2, he decided to get into maths, physics, chemistry and then start preparing his. How is he doing it? His concentration is in that. Dhyanam means only concentration. Kalpana means what? Sankalpam. Yeah, I have to reach there. There is a target. The target is Kalpana. That is the focus. You understood? So, Kalpana or Dhyanam, focus or the path or your trials, exercise. Abhyasam. Abhyasam also comes only with Dhyanam and Kalpana. You start practicing for that.
in my imagination, if I focus on something and I keep focusing on that single thing for a very long time, so my focus is like fixed on the thing I'm imagining about.
Mm.
So will we say that I'm focused or I'm doing dhyan?
Yeah, but dhyanam is not, that is what I am saying. In Bhagavad Gita, dhyanam is not enough. That is what the Bhagavan says. Karmam is also required. Assume that I keep on looking at paracetamol tablet and doing dhyanam in paracetamol tablet when I have got fever. Or maybe I am chanting paracetamol, paracetamol, paracetamol 1,000 times. Is it good enough? Will my fever go? Eh?
Maybe after waiting for 3-4 days, it will go itself.
You will die also sometime. It depends on what fever you have.
Yes.
Okay. So, dhyanam, kalpana, focus, and all that is not, that is for what? Which leads to karmam. All these are preliminary activity, which makes you to do some action. Uddyamenaiva siddhyandi karyani na manorathai nehi suptasya simhasya pravishyandi mukhe mrgaha. Udyamam is planning, sankalpam, kalpana, dhyanam, focus. That is my udyamam. I plan to do this. I plan to do this. Yeah, I will take paracetamol. That is an udyamam. Udyamenaiva siddhyandi. If you do that, you will not get any benefit. Karyani na manorathai. With manas, the mind being active in that, have no use. As how a lion is opening the cave and then praying that let some deer come. Mrgam is deer. Let them deer come, then I will eat. Deer comes, then I will eat. Keep on telling and sitting there. The cave is open. Do you think the deer will come and then eat me because you are doing dhyanam? The lion has to hunt. So no benefit will come to you without your action. That is what it says. It's very, very clear. We always believe that I concentrate, then it comes. No. I pray, then it comes. No. Nothing will come if you don't do action. That is why Bhagavad Gita is a karma yogam. Definition of karma yoga is exactly given. You have to do action. That's it. But dhyanam is required. What is dhyanam? Dhyana yogam also is there. Raja yogam is also there. You have to be very cleverly think about what is to be done. Right? You should plan everything. Very correct plan is required. Focus is required. So it will tell you all these are good. But what is the prime requirement? Karma yoga. That's what again Arjuna asked. Keep on asking. Second chapter, third chapter. Everywhere same question. You tell me what exactly to be done. He says, how can you do karma without having dhyanam? Without focus? If you don't know how a engine works and then start repairing it, you become a mechanic of ITI fellow or diploma maximum. You be an engineer who knows how the engine works and then repair it, that becomes better, right? So jnanam is must. But just jnanam will not help you. Action is more important. So after the second chapter is actually the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Everything is finished. Second chapter. If you read a second chapter, it's like reading the synopsis and introduction and the conclusion of a thesis. That's good enough. You know everything out of it. But soon after completion, Karma Yoga came. It is not Karma Yoga is put in 18th chapter. Second chapter itself, Bhagavad Gita is over. But then Arjuna did not understand anything. Exactly what is to be done, you tell me. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam yojayasi keshavaha. Tell me exactly what I have to do. That's what he asked, because he knew that this is where Krishna was asking him to do. But then I am confused. Vyamisreneha vakyena. Vyamisreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasi simavi. My buddhi is not working perfectly. Tadegam pata nishchitya yena sreyoham apinam. Tell me what is good for me precisely. But still Krishna did not tell precise answer, because you are supposed to create your own dhyanam. Without dhyanam, without theoretical knowledge, you do the job, then you will find fault with me. Because you told me I did it and it did not work. No. So dhyanam means you invest time there, study theoretically. Sankalpa means you know where you have to go. Therefore you are searching the path. And path can be entirely different for different people based on their background.
So you would.
As Yamini started, the whole discussion started. If you ask some question to philosophy people, they will confuse, and then I am more confused and all that. Am I doing that, or is it making clear?
It is making clear.
Good.
It is clear. Yes.
Yeah.
So if I don't understand anything, I'll come again.
Yeah.
I'll bring more questions.
Good.
So you were in the beginning. You were talking about poetry. So I want to ask you that I always feel that I personally feel a responsibility towards the language when writing the poetry. Like when I write, I sometimes mix a lot of words from different languages. Like if I'm trying to write Urdu, there comes Hindi also. There comes sometimes a bit of Rajasthani also. So do we have a responsibility towards language? But when we think about it, that no, I have to be very precise about the language, then the bhav gets lost because you cannot always work it up.
You tell me, is there any language which doesn't depend on some other language?
No.
What is the origin for advocate? Advocate is a common word which is used in English. It is not at all in English. Okay. Most of the words which we are using, either Greek and Latin. That is why we say we don't understand something, we say it is Greek and Latin to me, right? If somebody in English knows what is jackfruit, is it an English word? The product is from which place originated, that is where the name of the item comes. There are plenty of words which are used from one to another one. Majorly, every Sanskrit literature written in this country influenced local writers in different mother tongue. Therefore, they invariably mixed Sanskrit in their language. If you look at most of the poetry, songs in Telugu, you will see 80% Sanskrit there. And such writing of mixing language is called Manipravala. Manipravala. That is accepted when you add Sanskrit into any mother tongue. I am sure most of the Hindi writers use lot of Urdu. Lot of Sufi literature influenced Hindi writers. You may not even know the difference between Hindi and sometimes Urdu. They mix so well. Nothing wrong. Assume you know that a non-native speaker, assume I am writing one English. If I had a great opportunity to be with Lincoln University linguistics professor, one Nair. If I give him English newspaper from India, he will underline words which are not understood by normal English people. Because we use the word priest, Nambudiri, In maybe it is in Kerala, we will write Nambudiri. He said this is not an accepted English word. There are so many words which we use. Pandit, we will write Pandit in some newspaper, you can see. Pandit is not at all accepted English word. Is it an English word? But Indian English, it is accepted. So if you look at word by word in a newspaper, there are nearly 30% of the words which are not acceptable by English people. So what is to be done now? Assume you want that to be read by somebody who don't understand that language. Put an asterisk, put a bottom line and then start explaining it. That is what is to be done. See, for example, one of my poetry is Malak to Kalam to Malak. Do you understand anything? It's an English poetry. My Malak to Kalam, the Malak. Kalam, if you write in reverse, it will become Malak. Okay. Malak in Hebrew and Arabic has got two different meanings. So what I did is I used both meanings. One is an angel and another one is a decoration. So what did I write? My decoration to Kalam, who is an angel. The 55th poem in my book called The Rhythm of Life. It is downloadable. You can read. It's a beautiful poem. Not because I wrote about somebody whom I really love, right? And I used these techniques there. My Malak to Kalam, the Malak. I am sure if you don't know the word meaning Malak, the whole poetry cannot be accepted as English poem. Because Malak is not an English word. Malak is an Arabic word. Malak is also a Hebrew word. Got it? So what I am supposed to do? I am supposed to put a small note below saying that Malak means this. Yeah, there is another poetry which I went to Fiji. My experience of looking at Fiji, I wrote a poetry. In which also there are some basic Fiji words, the dress which is used by them. If you look at English dictionary, you will not get. You will have to go to Fiji, probably some website to know that they use it very often. Okay, so what do we do? Below that we will write, this is what it means. That way you can explain. So you will not lose the kalpana which you have. You will not lose the the benefit of using such words. You can still use it. See, here I wrote Ram Ram in Ferry Fiji. Ram is not a word at all. No, that's Ram Ram is not name. Ram Ram is what we call when we feel something great or wow sort of a thing. Ram Ram we will say. So that is used as in an English poem. So nothing wrong. See, here I have explained all this after the poetry. What I explained here. How many are you seeing? What are all I explained here? They are all explanations of what I used in the poetry.
Okay.
Balu means welcome in Fiji language. Sulu means the dress commonly used in Fiji. So I use such things, nothing wrong.
So sir, there is like two things. That one is that you have some knowledge of that language, some good knowledge, and then you are making some changes and you are innovating something. And the other thing is that you don't understand the language much, but you are just because you want to write and you're going with the flow. So between these two things, I feel that we should also have some responsibility towards the language also, that we should understand and then make an innovation.
See, there is Shakespeare's most of the drama when he wrote not in English. Later it became Shakespearean language. So we have some Yamini language. Maybe after some time somebody will say this is called the Yamini's language. Correct?
Okay.
We have somebody in Bahubali who speaks rubbish things and then we say that's a different language, right? Nobody understands that. Still they use it in movie, right? Correct? Some of the scoldings which we have in Kerala, when we wanted to know what yesterday Asha was telling a beautiful story, but then we use it like scolding, Vidhi Kushmandam. Nobody may know what Kushmandam means, but it's a common scolding. So use it with all wisdom, you can use it. But if you want, probably you can give an explanation. Otherwise, give your telephone number. If any doubt, call me, I'll tell you. There are Kerala poets who wrote Mushiganam Nyan, Mushiganimel, Pushaganamni, Pushaganimol. The first one says, the cat runs like a cat. And the next one, he could not use the word rat because that doesn't go well with that. So what he did, he used a word called Pushiga. Actually, there is no Malayalam word like that. But because of the context, the first one is cat, the next one became rat. Mushiganamnyan, Mushiganamnyan. I am a cat. Therefore, you, immediately what you will say? Rat only, right? The cat and the mouse. So you have to be a mouse. So what is done? Pushiganamnyan, Pushiganamnyan. There is no word at all. If you look at the whole dictionary, it is not there. But he created such a word. Therefore, every one of us who read that poetry knows. There cannot be anything else. Yeah.
So another question, if you had a discussion on depression,
Yeah.
the whole session on depression. So this question is from that context that the question is that what is fear, and the context that what I'm asking is that in the context of anxiety and depression, mainly anxiety, it is said that anxiety is a bodily response of some kind of fear, some kind of feeling that we don't want to face, or some object we don't want to face, and we have some irrational fear of it. That is why our body has fight or flight response. And anxiety is deeply related with depression. So both these things. But the thing is, the basic bhav that comes out is fear. That we have some strong fear about something. So what is your opinion on this? And what actually is meant by fear?
See, I have an examination to write and I have not studied properly. Then I have fear of exam. Then second one is, I know there is an interview in which only one candidate will get selected because there is only one post. And I am seeing 10 people sitting. Then we get a fear. Rationally, we are supposed to find answer saying that, yes, if not this job, I will get some other job. If I fail, I have got some other supplementary can be written. If not this degree, I can take some other degree. It is not going to end here. Right? I don't know whether I told you or not. When Nitya Chaitanya Yati, one of my guru, when somebody went and told him that I am so depressed, sir, Swamiji, because I lost my girlfriend. You know, immediately Guru asked him, are you so depressed that you are so inefficient, so useless in your life, you will not get any other girlfriends? But this is a rational thought, practical thought. What happens in depression is, your practical thought will die. You are not able to communicate to brain because emotions becomes too high. When emotion becomes too high, brain will not work. That is why when I get angry, I will tell you, I told you 100 times. Do you think the other person, Asha, will say, no sir, you did not tell me 100 times. This is second time you are telling. Will you tell that? That 100 means I am fed up. I don't want to answer it. That sort of a thing, right? So it is not counting. That means rationality goes. The buddhi doesn't work. You are controlled by manas. When you are controlled by manas, immediately manas becomes uncontrollable. Because when you have bhayam inside, if there is no bhayam,
Can I?
manas will work normally. So that bhayam, fear, makes your manas to not consult to the brain practically. Your decisions will not come and you become in tension and in distress. That is what happens. Yeah, Asha has something to add.
Sir, I want to add something on that because one thing is there are two types of people, left brain and right brain people.
No,
So it is said that
this is not at all cannot be told because there is no left and right brain. It's a stupid Western system which taught that there is a left brain, logical, right brain. It doesn't work because in Hyderabad I have got a person whose half brain was cut and he is functionally perfectly all right. This is a wrong psychological study which is propagated by the so-called maybe rubber sheet or rubber tapping person becomes an what is that? Some club is there, Rotary Club, Lions Club, and young wise man's club, and they go to such clubs and then get training. And there was some training center in Cochin who propagated in whole Kerala. We had a great argument. This is an old psychological principle which was almost people have left it. It is not workable. Indian tradition never says that we have got a left separate, right separate. God has made us only symmetric. There is no scientific proof on saying that there is a left brain, right brain.
Okay, sir. Okay, then let me put this question this way. It is said that people who are artistic in nature.
It's all wrong.
No, sir. I was coming to my question. I left that brain there itself. Sir, people who are artistic, like poets or writers or even filmmakers, they tend to go into depression very fast, rather than people who are rational in nature, like scientists or even mathematicians also. So what could be the reason for that?
See, most of the time when you have an ego around you, that is added to you by your fame. Okay, scientists generally have lot of failures. Every problem cannot be solved without failure. You tried 10 times. Out of 100 ideas, 1000 ideas, one will work. So they are every day into failure. And not too much competition between one scientist and another scientist, because everybody has got publishing papers, 1000 journals, getting promotions, all these are fine. But that is not the case with artists. That is not the case with, they cannot earn money also sometimes. But here when you do something, definitely there is guaranteed that a minimum income is created. You have a standard of life which you don't have to show off. But whereas those people, what happens to them? They get into lot of difficulties because of, one is fame, second is relationship, third one they don't usually have a normal life. They think that they have to be aloof, and after some time they become difficult to mix with the people. There are a lot of problems for them. See, if you look at an artist, it is not that simple to become an artist.
Yeah.
What happens is, not only he has to act, all that he has to dub himself, the word by word he has to come. Got it? Sometime it fails, there will be a complaint coming that, see, as long as Balasubramaniam is able to give a beautiful dubbing for Kamal Haasan's movie into Telugu, it is accepted well. But if that doesn't work, some films would have failed, then finished. Because it involves a lot of money. Your money is involved there. Somebody's money is involved. When it comes to an academician or a scientist, your money doesn't go. If a satellite is not going, it falls somewhere. Kalam can say, chairman told me like this, or chairman will go and address the public. Somebody else will take responsibility. But in a movie, it doesn't happen. If something flops, then he will not get chance at all. That's what the other day I was telling. A politician cannot stand without doing this. If nobody does it, it becomes depression for him. And they get into a social life where there are a lot of possibilities of mixing with alcoholic, mixing with addictions of drugs. All these problems add to your logical reasoning because you are not able to think. If you don't get it also, you commit suicide. So the reasons could be entirely different. That happens to students. It is not because they are rationally not possible, because they cannot hold the blame from parents sometimes. I am sure if you have got a very good parent who will be always beside you, they don't have to commit suicide, they don't have to attempt suicide also, no? There has to be somebody who says, I am with you. Yeah. Yeah, funny.
How to get over depression?
You should have you should have ambition, but you must know how to limit it. Let it be fame, let it be knowledge, let it be position and power, and you should have good company where you can share that. If you don't have somebody where you can share it very
brain
closely.
stops working, and it's all the emotion that controlling your body or your behavior.
Yeah.
So then, how do you give a command to your brain that stop all this, and how do you
See, that is why in childhood onwards, that is why the upbringing, childhood onwards, you are a failure, you lost so many times, you missed so many times. That is why sports and such competitions are introduced into academics, because everybody will not win. Examination you fail, sports you fail, so failing is not a big problem in life. It's a fear of failure, hopelessness. Correct? That leads to depression. So you can be hopeless in games, you can be hopeless in arts, but do that. What is wrong? That is why sports and extracurricular activities along with the curricular activities is given. The social mixing is given, competitions are given. Everything is part of school education. Is not to give you certificates and education alone. It is also to teach you that life have competitions and you will fail. Failing has to be accepted. If I fail, again there is nothing wrong. No, I can always win somewhere else. The world is created with a lot of options. Only thing you will have to equip yourself. That feeling should come. That's what I am saying. When somebody loses girlfriend and comes to Swamiji says, are you so depressed you don't get somebody else? Why are you going behind somebody else? There are millions of people in this world, yeah? Millions of opportunities. Why do you worry? So understood, you are not able to logically think. That needs to come by everyday practice. It happens to most of the people where they were boosted up so much, and all on a sudden they are not able to hold there, they fall, dim down. As you go more upper, brings you too fast.
Sir, how is contentment different from satisfaction? How is contentment different from satisfaction?
See, I am from a small village. I got a small nursery school teacher job. I am good enough. You are contented with your life there. But then internally, that may be a physical contented. Financially, you are contented. But your satisfaction is an emotional feeling. Yeah, seeing something I wanted to grow. But still you can be contented. That contented, maybe satisfaction is there, contentment is there, and then happiness is there, little higher. It's a small marginal gap, that's it. Happiness is feeling, contentment is, yeah, I am okay. Sort of a feeling. Yamini, it's good enough? Anything more? Is it okay that your fear is satisfied?
Yes, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So it was related to this question only, that what is the credibility of our own narratives, like the narrative monologue that goes on in our heads. So in depression and anxiety or any mental disorders, this is found that people are usually repeating the same narrative, the same thing, and it is usually not their own thought. Either it was told to them by their parents or some traumatic event.
That is why I told you, always take a pen and paper, write it down. That's the prescription I give to most of the people. Any thought which comes to you, keep writing. Whatever question you are asking, when you are asking fear, it's not that I don't remember, I write it down. When you write it down, you get a concretized channel of thoughts.
But sir, sometimes it doesn't help. Like
No.
if there was some traumatic event or there was somebody something was
See,
said to
everyone
them.
everyone has got a hopeless stage, nothing will work. But if your practice is analyzing perfectly, what you should do is you should take a matrix and then write down this is my problem, this is my capacity, this is how I wanted to do my things. Write it down clearly, plan it well. Mostly it works. So you are becoming practical in your everyday activity. What are the possibilities? Okay, this I cannot do. Who are the people whom I can help? That's one. Second one is you speak to somebody. That is why you need a mentor. That's why you need someone where you can speak out, spell out, talk to him. Then you feel, yeah, I'm able to now relax. Right? Because you poured to somebody else. In the traditional time, what happens is you have got somebody. See, everyone lived in a society where you have got a few people. Assume that by 56 years of my life in this world, I am not able to get at least 10 people with whom I can communicate so coolly with a lot of confidence. What is that I have achieved as a social being? You understood?
Yes, definitely.
So that has to be there. So you should have someone where I can pour all my problems and then get a solution. You should also have that maturity to take somebody in your lap when it is really required. That ability all of us should have. That is what is being social. That is what is our responsibility.
I agree, sir. Because in many of the consultations, also when people go for counseling and everything, so this is what they do. It is what is required to do. And the narratives have to be relearned.
No, but
Okay.
but I don't agree, and I am not recommending or I don't advocate going to a counseling person, going to a consultation. That is
Yeah,
because they don't know you. They don't understand you. Many people, when they come to me, sometime I use a shortcut of looking at their horoscope to know, because I know them much more than what they speak. Everybody cannot do that, right? So what is generally done is we know that person and we have a contact. That's what I'm saying. By at this age, if I don't have somebody in contact, you don't require a qualification of psychiatry, psychology, doctorate, MBBS plus psychiatry. They will give you medicine only. Suppose they have got only a practitioner of clinical practitioner with a PhD in psychology, they will start giving you so many suggestions, and they actually don't know how to see. We had only very few people like Rama. When he was really sick, he went to Vasishtha only. When Krishna gave to Arjuna, but Arjuna had a lot of other elder brothers and gurus. They didn't do any help. So you have to be higher, highly qualified, who have to be matured enough, who can understand the world. Theory has to be there. Practical example also you must be able to suggest to your people. I am very, very unhappy about those people who are giving a certificate of masters in counseling psychology, and then tomorrow onwards you start solving problems where they themselves have thousands of problems in their family. Today many people opt for BA psychology because they have a lot of problems in their life. They think that when I learn psychology I will become alright. They become more sad and mad. That's what will happen.
Yes.
That is highly practical. You should have an experience of life. You should have experience of reading so much. You should have theoretical and practical knowledge. You must be traveling a lot. All that essential. Experience is must. Otherwise, I am dealing with somebody's life. Anything can happen.
Exactly, sir. But this is the problem. The people don't, especially children, don't find such people who can be good, who can provide them good security.
It is
Because
not true. That is because in our every teacher gets a one paper, which is educational psychology. See, they are not studying, they are only taking the degree with a certificate, they mugged up something and wrote is different. But there is a content, and a good teacher is one who is a mentor really. So out of your experience from the small KG onwards up to higher education, I am sure you will find. And teachers, mostly teachers are ladies. All throughout the world, teachers are ladies. if you look at 80% of them are ladies in the lower education. That is meant to be like that, because they are better to listen to somebody's problems, they know how to counsel. But what happened these days, immatured, uneducated, somehow passed with the certificates, they become teachers, and they also have problems from their end, so they add up. The other day I was telling quality improvement in teachers in the lecture. I told, when you bring in some counseling person or a career guidance or psychiatry person, everybody is same. The bunch of people will come and then talk to the students, and then somebody will say my maths is very bad. Then immediately they will ask, who is teaching you maths? Then I will say Falgun. Yeah, Falgun, all the children who are taught by Falgun has got this problem. So those children will start hating the teacher also. Ultimately they will give a report, Falgun is a bad maths teacher. They finished, their job is over. But that doesn't solve problems, right?
Exactly.
So if somebody comes with a problem, you must equip him how to get yourself tuned with the situation. You cannot change the situation. I cannot tell the whole world is bad and you are good always. That is good to hear, but that is not practical. So sometimes they mislead. That's really bad. So I don't suggest going to somebody else. Only teachers should do. Otherwise, that is where we look at generally to give a general talk, have a interaction. I don't go for 1 hour talk to any schools generally. I will do full day. Half day lecture, half day they will ask questions. By the end of the day, they will know, yeah, they know me. And then probably I will do a workshop of 3 days. I am sure next day Falgun and all was coming to my house. He is my student. I went to his school. 2 times I went. 3rd time I did a 3 days workshop. Then after a few days, he came to my house at least 2-3 times. Either to get a suggestion. I am not saying no, which subject to study, where to study, what to study. You cannot ask just like that until I know that what is his background. What I always keep asking, what are your parents doing? What is that to you? Many questions I keep asking. That is for understanding the background, understanding how good he is, how he is answering. All that analysis is done before actually coming to problem.
Thank you.
Good enough?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Anything? Harsha, I saw some comments written there. You have written something in Telugu which I couldn't read. Therefore, I just left it that time. Yeah. America is a Latin word, even though they are English people. Yeah, that's true. Because America doesn't have nationality at all. That's a collection of people from different places. Only migrants are there. Native Americans are.
Telugu in Telugu.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, anything? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Anything? Jayanti Sahu, Dr. G. Some Sushma Shama is there. I don't know who is that. Praneeth. Anusha also left, or maybe in some other call also. Good enough? Good enough? Chandrasekhar joined back. Anything to add, Chandrasekhar? Otherwise, we'll.
Yeah, nothing actually. I just wanted to share my one experience when psychology thing is coming.
Yeah.
Which actually surprised me a little bit. Like on ship, when maybe somebody when I was a cadet might have put into my mind that don't never forget that you are on a ship. Because the ship is half a kilometer. You sometimes people really forget that it's a floating thing. They think that it is on land only. Because it doesn't move much. So you are not always constantly reminded. So he said, never forget that you are on a ship and it's a ship floating on the water and it can, sink anytime. So you have to be on that kind of a mindset. So probably that got registered, very well into my, subconscious mind. So even when I became a captain, I had this everything. Like every moment, the moment I step into the gangway, on the ship, this thing like just something like, gets planted like, okay, now you are on the ship. So you tend to become very negative, like in the sense that you're scanning for things which are wrong, because you know that if there is a fire, you can't call firefighting. And if there is a medical emergency, you can't call a doctor. If there is an emergency, you can't call any, rescue team. So you are all. So your focus is on training and all that. And there is some feeling that something might go wrong, there in the back of the mind. That is always there. Early morning when you get up, okay, maybe something might go wrong. So everywhere you are, taking a round, you have this negative aspect of what can go wrong. This wire might break. This wire is looking a little rusty. All that kind of thing. And I used to think that it's a very negative thing, and people have told me that, this kind of a thinking is very negative, you're not very happy with this. But I can't say I'm happy or sad about it, but I'm okay with it. And then after so many years, recently I came to know, there was some term given for this kind of a attitude. And they said this is what is people are looking for, especially in industries like shipping and all, where the safety, takes a lot of precedence. So you have to think negatively. Like basically, when you're going into a tank, you are stepping down to the ladders. You should get a thought that you might fall. That only will bring, more consciousness into you to hold the ladder, more tightly so that you don't slip, or to look at the next step. In the tank, sometimes what happens because of rust, one step is missing. So it's not just the steps means they are just like rods, and if you fall, you'll just fall into 20 meters down. So that's a very good thing to happen. Then I thought, oh my God, all these years I was having this thing, constantly reminding me of the current situation, which I was thinking a negative, bad habit, and maybe creating a little bit of anxiety also in me. But then I realized somebody telling me like, no, this is actually the good thing, and people are looking for it. Like in especially in the people like captains or on that stage of a thing, you should have you would love to have such people on board. So
Yeah, there is something called acclimatization or conditioning yourself. You get conditioned to such situations, or you get used to that. I know I have visited many varieties of ships. When you talk about a cargo ship or maybe mercantile ships, it's like a lorry carrying lot of things in your place you will see, and probably a navy ship where I visited navy ships, submarines, diving ships, and all that. That it's like a palace. So when you say that your ship ladders are rusted and all that happens in such a ship where you have got cargo to go. Whereas our cruise ships or maybe a navy ship and all is like a palace. We have got a red carpet as you go. We have got a bar. It's more like a big hotel, 5-star hotel, and you have got a canteen inside. You can buy all the items. I remember going into many such ships. So it all depends. You get into a condition. If there is a turmoil, if there is a jerk, then you realize, yeah, you are in a ship. Otherwise, you don't even feel. Some of the Alleppey and all that, the boats also have got, it's like a big cottage. You don't even know that you are inside, because you can have games inside. We had conferences inside. We have get together inside. One of our BSc classmates get together. 150 people can be in a conference room in a small boat which is created in Alleppey for conferences. So I think we get accommodated there, then we are in a different world. Probably Chandrasekhar is in a different world as he get into the ship. In the beginning, that acclimatization will not happen, that conditioning will not happen. You have to be consciously suggestive that you are in this place, you are in this place. Right? Yeah, it's true.
Sir,
yeah, same thing, even in driving also, sometimes I use that. Even if you're driving, you should never forget that you are on a road, and you should be looking for things like that, even more consciously.
Yeah.
Sometimes they feel that, then driving will not be a fun. But fun is fine, but you should be consciously doing things like, driving, so that, you can properly avoid some accidents.
Be in the flow. consciously unconscious. That is what we say, meditation in action. Anything what you do, do it meditatively, dhyanam, focused, and then your practical brain also will suggest you. That is where you get into a spiritual world. When you can do many things parallelly in the meditative nature, you are called a Atmiya Purusha. Yeah, Asha has got a last word to say. Probably.
Sir, last question for today.
Yeah.
Sir, my question is how do you talk to a person who has an intimidating air of command himself or herself?
I didn't get.
Sir, in our life we meet a lot of people, and sometimes some people are for the first time when we meet
before
some people for the first time.
when somebody asks question, I write. Why can't you write the question and read? You become very crisp. Always do that. That is what is called a preparation. Otherwise, what happens is you keep telling so many things, but you did not tell what exactly to be conveyed. Don't do that. Always keep a pen and paper, write it down clearly. See, even when Chandrasekhar is talking, whatever I have to speak, I wrote down here. That habit has to be there. Now, okay, now tell me.
Okay. Then my question is.
Yeah, again, why do you want to say my question is? I know you will not ask some XYZ question. You will ask your question only. Don't use English is bad when you use words which are unnecessary. Many people have this. I just want to tell you. Why just want to tell you? I know that all of you know that. I keep asking why everybody knows why you have to tell that. Then get out of this place. If you are going to talk everything what others know, why are you talking? Big point, very specific. You are a statistics man, very close to mathematics at least. So you have to be precise. Yeah.
Okay, sir. In our life we meet a lot of people, but there are certain people who are quite intimidating in their nature. Even for the first time when we meet, we actually think twice before talking to them.
I don't think that is all practice. That is because probably your parents are very strict. They would have told you don't talk to anybody, be careful, and don't mix with them. My children, I never did like that. What I did was when they could just walk, I was on a scooter, I will ask them, go and then ask, bargain, get tomato. They will tell you 32 rupees, give him only 20 and get 1 kg. Let me see how do you do that. So 4 years they started doing it. I keep doing. I keep doing, I make people also to do. That reservation is only when you are brought up in such a situation. Either you are from a village or a place. Have you seen Papatan? Whoever comes to my house, they all know Papatan, right? He will come only 1 hour, but he will know everybody, 40 people, 50 people, and then go. And his image is there in everybody's. And that is why when after the camp somebody was in a mall in Bangalore, in 3rd floor, the Papatan was in the ground floor. From there he shouted, Papata, oh Papata. That courage is because you behave in like that and you create such a situation. You have that freedom. So that's all something to do with the freedom and culture. And culture is just practice. Abhyasam. Do it. Some schools and colleges when we go, there are no questions because the teachers would have told them, don't ask question. I will tell you who should ask question. You write down the questions. And you only should ask because they select 3 people without grammar mistake you should ask. And you have to be, that should go. I think everybody should be given freedom. Teachers, most of them, don't ask, sit, don't talk. Nobody says talk, they will say don't talk only. I want teachers who will say shout. Don't talk should not be there. Why people don't say shout? That's why I keep saying in my, I allow people to ask anything at any point of time, stop me, nothing wrong, but don't waste time. Right? You should straight away come. Don't ask, let me ask a question. That itself is finished. Yeah, you already asked. I answered, yes, you can ask. Finished. Don't ask me now. Because you asked one question, that is over. Straight. See, when I travel, I must have met a lot of film stars. I must have met a lot of singers. I will go and talk to them. They also expect In the train, when I see some person, no, even any conference when I ask Jayanti Sahu, no problem at all. Whichever conference she goes, immediately she will switch on and then start talking. Learn from her. Actually, you should join any webinar 10 minutes before and then start talking. The other day, you wanted to ask question and we joined, immediately asked to ask question. So I don't have anything to ask. You only asked you want to ask question. And when you asked a question, then you tell 51st poetry. How do you expect me to hold the book, or person who is having the book should hold it? See, these are all preparation. Understood?
Yeah.
You should prepare yourself, and then I am not saying that, you know, when you meet the Prime Minister, go and ask him, sir, what is your name? You should know what to ask him, for which you need to have sufficient preparation. Then I think I am sure you can go. You are good, otherwise you will not come and ask me like this, right? There are a lot of students who don't ask. Yeah.
Sir, I don't know whether I conveyed the question correctly. I am telling what I was going to tell was that there are certain people, even though people who are really confident would find it really hesitant to talk to them.
That is what I am saying. That's a culture. I already answered it. Hesitation is only a practice. That is because their parents and teachers and everybody would have asked them not to open up. If that practice is given, see, there are some children, no, immediately they will come and sit on. I remember a third grade student who was attending my camp, and after that I went to one of the colleges to talk to WWS program for the senior students. Her parent came, and then I said, this girl can also sit there. She sat. And when I asked, write down in the last class what I said, everything you should write. She wrote a big paragraph saying what all she learned in 10 days of camp with me. Then I said, who want to come and speak? Immediately she came, started reading. That hesitation is there only when you grow and you think that you have an ego. Otherwise hesitation is not there. Otherwise it's a practice. One of this should happen.
Sir,
Hmm.
sir, I have few things to ask you. So how to manage?
We will
time?
schedule. We will
That
schedule
is
some
one
other.
thing, that how to manage time. But if you want to do something, but it is not on your hand to complete certain things, but you have so many works to do, but you are not able to complete that. How can you do that? And how to make your in certain conditions, when you are living with certain conditions and you have to accept the certain conditions, but you are not happy, but trying to be happy and
I understood.
happy. So how things?
I keep saying there are only one thing. You change the situation. If you cannot change it, you change yourself. If nothing happens, you go to some other place.
Yes.
That's a simple
But
thing.
that,
Assume I am working in a university. I am not happy with that. I cannot change the university. I will try to change the way they are working, and still I am not able to change. What I will do? I will say tata bye bye. I will go to some other place where I can go. Why do you worry?
But somehow, if you are not strong enough to take the decision,
See,
many times.
the problem is there is a but. Avoid the word but. But, yet, still, however, nevertheless. All these words are asking you to keep quiet. Wherever there is a but, reverse. Yeah, there is no but. Thank you.
Thank you.
Accept people as they are, otherwise, yeah, change. Yeah, it's okay, fine, thank you. Anything when somebody says, don't think about it. You say, yes, very good, wonderful, agreed. Assume that somebody skips college and then go to movie and then getting a scolding. Yeah, tomorrow onwards I will not go. Again you go tomorrow. That's it. Forget about it. That was yesterday. This is today.
Yes, maybe you're right, sir.
Yeah.
I remember.
See, there is a grandfather who asked the grandchild, why did you love that boy? You should have told me. Do there anybody goes and tells grandfather before loving somebody? Nobody tells, right? Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Good, Jayanti. Good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir.